Hello. Remember that last week we made you a promise that for 3 Sundays running, we'll be focusing on the central bank. And last Sunday, we looked at the jurisprudence of Naira redesign. And we promised you that this Sunday, we are going to look at Godwin Emefiele, the central bank governor, President Muhammadu Buhari, our president, and ways and means. This afternoon, I have Honorable Sergius Ogun, PDP Edo State. Honorable, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for having me, sir.
We have a challenge. The president has written the National Assembly asking for approval of about over 21 trillion naira of money he has already spent. And this money was granted him as advance by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Are there no rules and accountability process in granting these advances?
Well, under the CBN Act, Section 38, CBN Act of 2007, the CBN can, through ways and means, give monies. But it will have to be 5% of the preceding year, revenue of the country of the preceding year.
Not exceeding 5%.
Not exceeding 5%. So that is the approval they need, but carrying the National Assembly along. But I think the challenge has been, the CBN has been operating in defiance, so to speak, because today we are talking of about 22 trillion in the past 7 years. So they have been giving more than 5%. And that 5% is to when you have budget deficiency, your revenue. That is when the federal government approaches the CBN and it will be given. And that loan should be paid back that same financial year. But all that now has been trashed. The CBN governor has just been on his own. Even in approving all this, if the federal government had approached the National Assembly even, to say, okay, this is where we are, I think section 83, sub 1 or so of the Constitution, 1999 Constitution as amended, allows for a contingency fund, but all that was jettisoned and became a free-for-all business. So that's the dilemma today. So if the president is sending a bill to do what? Or sending a request to do what? To approve what has been spent when it was done in defiance? That's the big challenge now that we don't even know how to resolve.
No, but there's even another issue. What is the, for want of better expression, what is the retiring process of these advances before another advance is given? Isn't there a retiring process, a time frame, a limit?
Well, again, many people have queried the independence of the central bank. But again, that is why we have 3 arms of government. The legislative arm, the executive, and then the judiciary. And the CBN brings their budget to the National Assembly. So I think the National Assembly or the legislative arm dropped the ball. I think we should have scrutinize this.
Spotted this?
Yes, and then take it, or this should have been taken up to say, look, you are already working outside the limit of your approval. And then that should have been dealt with long ago. But, the challenges we've faced with this government in the past years, this past 7 years going to 8 years, has been where the National Assembly has been in bed with the executive. And as they claim it, now they have claimed that we are a rubber stamp National Assembly.
Because let me interject there. I have a challenge there.
Yeah.
When they're in bed with the executive, is this romance outside of the law? do they create their own conditions and leave the law which they promulgated or which they enacted ab initio?
Yeah, but that's the challenge. When the two arms can work together, but one is supposed to act as a balance, as a check and balance to the other. But when they are both in bed, all for the convenience of is one party, is our
outside
party.
Outside of the law.
Outside of the law. That is where we have found ourselves. Nobody says you cannot collaborate. That's not because people say, I know, people say, why do they have to be fighting always? But I have always said, when the two arms are fighting, the legislative arm and the executive, when they are fighting, the voters, the everyday Nigerians should just observe them. Because it might be in the best of your interest. Maybe it might be for your good. Because when they're in a cozy relationship, they might just throw you under the bus. And I think that's what has happened right now. But this came under the guise of we need to protect our party. So the country is now suffering and paying seriously for it. And I dare say maybe we have also done our own job well, the opposition. So because even our house rules and the constitution allows for that, to have an opposition arm. So that when some of these things are happening, if the chairman of finance fails to support something like this because he's a member of the same party, we have an opposition. We have leadership there. They should have flagged this, But like I said, I think it's a collective failure.
I want to draw my own attention really to an alarm raised by the Edo State governor a little early in 2022.
Yeah.
He said...
2021 matter of fact.
I think so.
2021.
When he said that the central bank governor was printing money and giving to the states with this ways and means mechanism, and that the man was creating a challenge within the economy. And that brings me to the issue. This ways and means and the advance, what is it? Is it just that, is it promissory note, just some words, or we are printing money and giving to the federal government to offset debt?
We are printing money. It's a loan, deficiency of the budget revenue.
So we go and print additional money
to yes. So, but I think my governor has been vindicated now because he was so vilified then. I was actually in a meeting in the festival hall in Government House in Benin when he was basically talking to leaders, after the victory at the polls and the inauguration it was in November, so he was meeting the leaders of the party to say, look, we don't have money in this country. The country doesn't have money now. We have to rethink. We have to reset. We have to be creative in the way we run government. So letting the leaders know. And he even made a statement that day that this is what we face. This is what comes to the states every month through FARC. And this is what comes from the internally generated revenue. By the time we do X, Y, Z, there's little or nothing. So that you all here, leaders today, will tell me or will have to advise me on the way forward. It was just like a family meeting, But I think when he said that, the cameras were there and they picked it up. When he said that this is where the federal government is today. And maybe it was a good thing he said it then. But everybody descended on him and all that. But the truth, like they say, is we always find it will always come out, and that's where we are today. But what people most of my colleagues have said it. The CBN could have taken this route, or even not CBN and the government, the executive should have taken this route. You had challenges with funding. Should I be talking about the contingency funding, and then you get the approvals. If the National Assembly was carried along from day one, maybe that would have been a creative way of doing this. Not spend, and now you are asking for approval of arrears. So that's the challenge, that's the dilemma.
I want you and I to look at what this ways and means amounts to, really. You print money and you give, for instance, to government agencies and state governments to pay salaries, for instance. that money has not been earned because the federal government has not earned that revenue. Then the federal government begins to work to give value to that money it has been cost to print.
And that's why it's a loan. It's a loan.
It's a loan.
Yes, it must be paid back. So the letter from the president right now is to document it because you still have to pay back that loan.
Maybe by now raising appropriate revenue
Exactly.
that will match the money
Exactly.
that has been printed.
Exactly.
Are we not aware of the consequences of this kind of economic voodooism on, one, the value of the naira and the national economy?
Yeah, but that has become very obvious right now. So why is the naira on a free fall? When this government came, it was about, I was in the private sector then. I know the exchange rate was about 150 naira to the dollar for a long time. It was towards the election because this same party in government now, they were overheating the policy then. So people were changing their money into dollars. Companies were leaving, So there was capital flight. That was what led to, that was why it became about 190 something, just some few days to the election.
Was entering.
And a little after the election. Then with all the political capital that this government got when they took over, if I guess the international community and all were watching, if the right things were done, I'm sure the naira still could have, if he appreciated a bit, because there was no war, there was no major crisis. I mean, even the president that lost the election didn't go to court. He initially said the party could go to court, but he's not going. Then eventually he prevailed on the party not to go to court, prevailed on PDP not to go to court, and no such thing happened. These were political capital. Yeah, that could have encouraged the money to go back to about even max 160 naira to the dollar. But things were not done, opportunities were not taken. And then what happened thereafter? So these are steps that should have been taken were not taken. That's where we are today. So rushing to print money, rushing to go beyond the limit of approval and issue money to the federal government to enable government meet deficiencies in budget revenues might just be a shortcut, but not the solution. But that's where we are today. When this government came in, inflation was single digit. But where are we today? So it's not surprising that these things are happening. But I would dare say that the good news is there's an election next month.
No, even before the election comes, Honorable. So the governor of Nigeria Central Bank can go haywire, do anything that pleases him outside of the law, creates economic challenge for the nation, satisfies partisan political interests that are not in the interest of the economy, and goes home to sleep. And there are no consequences for this kind of infracting the law running down the economy.
No, I don't think he's going to go home to sleep. I doubt if he's going to go home to sleep. No. Irrespective of who wins the next election, I do not think the current CBN governor will go home to sleep. That's the truth. But that is part of what they are trying to cure now by the letter from the president to the National Assembly.
Yeah, but the president has already written, he wrote in defense of the central bank governor to say, look, I approved his redesigning the naira. I did that, and I approved his limit of withdrawal, which are some of the amendment moves being made to impress us, the ordinary Nigerians.
Well, for me, I really don't have any problem with that, because the redesign, like say, international best practice should be done maybe like every 8 years thereabouts. And it has been done here for 20 years. That's not a problem at all. And if you have more money outside the banks, it's a danger to this country. I mean, look at the Western world. We all travel. We don't see people using jute bag or to carry cash. And the cost of printing the cash. So we can't be borrowing money to print money. so that people will have enough to carry around. That is why you don't have kidnapping in the Western world. Because if it has to go through the financial...
You can't get the ransom.
Exactly, you can't get it. So if he must be transferred, it can be traced. So all that is good. You know, if you're talking about the cash limit, all that is good. It's a good thing that he has encouraged the CBN president to do that. That we applaud. But the illegality before is what we are addressing today. So I applaud them. I will support them for that to go through. But even in the first case, we had actually started this cashless before Emefiele took over. I remember in the days of Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, as he was then called, they were doing the cashless zonally. I remember, I think that was Port Harcourt and some other part of the South. Yes, and then Lagos, then Abuja. There's a limit to what you could withdraw and all that. That had started. So if he had continued that, we would not have been talking about this today. It would have been part of the system. The policy would have been, been effective, or be effective rather. But that didn't happen. So those are the missteps. Now, when you look back in retrospect, were they deliberate to allow some of what is happening today to happen? So as much as we appreciate the president for standing by the CBN governor to effect this policy, but too many things have gone wrong. And those are things I believe the president might just be helping the CBN governor to,
have a soft landing?
I think so.
On what is he going to land? Shouldn't he land on stone?
Yeah, well, he's definitely going to land. Maybe the stone is just trying to make it a bit too soft so that the guy will not break his neck.
Let us see, because it is obvious that the CBN governor, by these approvals, has immersed himself in illegality. He has disobeyed the law that establishes the central bank. But, sir, who should hold the CBN governor to account, and when?
Well, he has a whole lot right now on his plate, beside even the ways and means. So the National Assembly, yes, should have done our bit, but even the public. I knew some people had come out to say, look, ways and means, this is not the way to manage it. The former deputy governor of the CBN, Professor Mogalu, he spoke about this. And I have also seen some financial experts that have spoken about it. Some lawyers have spoken. But like I said, I think the politics in the system, not policy, politics.
Let me hold you on to politics. Let me hold the politicians in the National Assembly to politics. Yeah. Isn't it your responsibility to oversight the central bank?
True.
And if the central bank governor goes on a printing spree and he is committing an illegality, infracting the law, isn't it right and proper to pull him back and punish him for undermining the national economy? And what is the legislature waiting for?
Some of us are not as quiet as they might make it look. I actually brought a motion to that effect sometime last year. There was a lot of pressure for me to step it down. In short, there were so many issues that were raised. It was already listed on the other paper. So there was a whole lot of. I don't want to go into all that now.
I want to hold you to something. Yeah. Where does partisanship begin and end, and interest of the national economy begins?
Yeah, I get that. I get that. We are all responsible for where we are today in this country. I say that without missing words. Yes, because when we fail to take certain steps, those steps we fail to take, or if you call it missteps, we affect our children and our grandchildren. And that's where we are going to today. When you put interest of political party or your region or your religion before the right thing. At that time, because most times when we raise our voices about certain policies, we are called all manner of names. You know, you are doing this against your brother. You are doing this against your religion. You are doing it against... And I have several times, you know, had arguments, even on the floor of the house. When you say everybody's on one side because of religion. Everybody's on one side because they are from a particular region. Yeah, you know, so, and these are things for national interest you don't even come to play at all.
He is my thief, but I've admitted that he is a thief.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's horrible, and I pray that we can focus. I also think the lack of structure has really affected the way we've managed this country. Structure meaning strong institutions. Yes, because besides talking about the National Assembly, other bodies would have raised this long ago. Even, you know, like we're talking before coming on air here, within the CBN, the red flag should have been up to say, no, sir, we cannot approve this. Emefiele came from outside. He was appointed as the CBN governor from outside. But you have the bureaucracy. So people from within that are the core staff of CBN, you know, you have a legal advisor. There is a secretary to the board. Would have said, no, sir, we can't go beyond this. People should have been resigning to say, look, you endanger this whole institution if you do this. No, but that didn't happen. So we have to go back to build strong institutions that will resist, that will have the guard, the ray guards, and will protect it. You know, so it's not a one-day thing, but I believe we will get there someday.
Honorable, Emefiele didn't wake up one morning and began printing naira. Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic, I'm sure would have made a demand on the central bank for these advances. And he was making these demands outside of the law, outside of the provisions of the CBN Act, and maybe some provisions of the Constitution. Is he not culpable in this procedural rape? And what should be the consequence for him? Because this is democracy, accountability.
Of course, consequence is impeachment. But would that happen? The finance minister, I think, is a member of the board of the CBN.
No, the permanent secretary, or the Minister of Finance.
That reports to the minister. So that's what you're talking about, the ray guard that failed to protect the institution. So beside even the staff, the bureaucracy in the CBN, there's a board. So if the president says, maybe most likely the Minister of Finance said, look, we have issues with funding the budget, which is the deficiency for which this was envisaged, ways and means. And we need loan from the CBN, and this is how much we can take. But taking this will not even be enough. Somebody definitely advised the president. But in any case, he is the one we voted for. So the buck stops on his desk. So he should take the rap. So the consequences should have been an impeachment. But would that happen? I can sit down here, I can give you a categorical answer, which is no, it won't happen.
Yeah, but this government told us that it will govern within the law.
You still believe this government?
Should we believe it?
From their manifesto, the party manifesto, to everything they have done today, it's all been a lie. It's all been a contradiction. They told Nigeria they were going to restructure this country. Where they came, in short, it was their manifesto. When they were campaigning in 2014 into 2015 when they won the election. In 2018, they set up a committee headed by El-Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State. And they came out with a recommendation through federalism. That was their own restructuring formula. Then we went into the 2019 election. Almost 4 years after that promise was made, and nothing happened. 2019, today, now we are in 2023. almost 8 years down the road, you couldn't even meet that promise. I don't want to go into that of the security. Because the other day I gave an interview here. When they came, they also said they're going to take out Boko Haram in how many months? And I hear them say that Boko Haram were in over 20 local governments. Other times they will say, okay, they were in over 21 local governments, 17 local governments, depending on the side of bed whoever is speaking wakes up from. 12 local governments when they took over. And then I have also heard most of them say, then that we were all in Nigeria here, then nobody could go out in Abuja to attend church service or go to mosque. For crying out loud. Yes, there was the Yanyan bombing, the bus terminal, and then the UN. That was when Boko Haram came in. And to be fair to our security agents, they were able to flush them out of Abuja. They were restricted to Sambisa or the northeast. I remember I think it's the chairman of or president of the Chibok Association, those are the kidnapped their children. I can't quite remember his name. He said it in the last inauguration of the president, Buhari, 2019, that when the former president, Jonathan, brought in platforms and equipment, that they chased the government, this is a civilian, that they chased Boko Haram entirely out of the northeast and they were restricted to Sambisa forest before the election. So if you say the terrorists hosted their flags in 21 local governments in this country, there was no part of this country where there was no election. And the part of the country where you claimed
got
that
your highest number of votes.
You got your votes from there.
So
supposed
to be in the hands of Boko Haram.
There is something you are not telling us. Since either Boko Haram, either they were the youth wing of your party, or they were working with you. Because if they were in charge of those territories or in charge of those local governments, and you won those local governments handsomely
with high figures,
there's something you're not telling us. So I think they're just not believable. That's just the word. They are not believable. So it's not, one can sit down here to say they told us they will govern this way. They haven't. There's nothing they have told us in this country that they have followed up on. So it's too late to even start talking about that. We should just look forward to the next election and then...
Before the next election comes, because we wear the shoe as ordinary Nigerians, and we know it is pinching hard. The inflation is making every earning almost useless.
Bag of rice.
And some people just go ahead, print their naira and meet their own obligations. Is there a way out of this quagmire?
The way is to vote them out next month. Barely a month from today. So
we allow Muhammadu Buhari and Lai Emefiele to keep their printed notes. All of us suffer until the next election.
But we have a month to resolve that because too late. We have lived with them for going to almost 8 years. And we're about a month away from making the right decision. You know? So and I hope Nigerians will not give attention to what is not. So if we are hurting, we should go to the polls and do the right thing. Because otherwise they will come back again in a different color and then begin to sell to us what is not. So, but this is the right time. If we say we have suffered enough, if we say we are hurting, go to the polls. Teach them a lesson. Because the advantage of that, or the good thing about that, will be whoever is coming will know that those that have sent us here, they have the power to send us out. You know? But when you allow a system and somebody comes and then they're going to repackage themselves and then come back to you and then they remain there, then you are compensating bad behavior. You know?
Honorable Sergius Ogun, thank you very much for coming to the conversation.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Let's meet next Sunday. And don't forget that next Sunday, it will be Emefiele, DSS, and the allegation of funding terrorism. Good afternoon.